Hi, and welcome back to another episode of the Longevity Lab. I am Dr. Tariq Kader from Naples Longevity Clinic, and we are going to talk about the epigenes and the biological age. Every adult has two ages: the real driver's license age and another age called the biological age that is determined by changes on the genome that could predictably change as we age, determining what we call the biological age. Now, everybody is born with a preset and predetermined set of genome and DNA sequences. What is different? How the DNA changes and how is the DNA transcribed? If somebody has the gene, does not mean that they are going to have the changes related to that gene. And this is where epigenetics becomes very important. Epigenes are changes on the sequence of the DNA. I'm sure a lot of people heard the word methylation before, and this is a very important function of methylation, determining which gene is being transcribed and which gene is not. Now, how does this connect with biological age, somebody might ask. Now, think about the body's genome as a piano. Everybody is born with a preset, predetermined sequence of genome, sequence of DNA. What is not determined is the music that's being played. Depending on how you play the keys on that piano, the music is going to be different. Same for the genes. Depending on the epigenes, and these genes will be determined whether and how they are going to be transcribed into reality. And a lot of these epigenes, unlike genes, are something that is in our control. Food, exercise, sleep, smoking, alcohol, etc. Now, how does this all connect to biological age? Scientists, including Dr. Steve Hovarth, were able to isolate certain epigenes and epigenetic changes on the DNA sequence that could predictably change as we age. Looking at thousands and thousands and thousands of samples running through multiple algorithms, they were able to determine a formula based on a small sample of your DNA to determine what is your biological age. Since 2013 until today, 2026, multiple other biological clocks came up. And the argument was, okay, so I knew this, so what? Now, there are two very recent studies. The most recent one was in March of 2026, just last month, that actually looked at the biological age as one of the highest predictors of mortality. So if we were able to accurately determine the biological age based off of certain changes in the DNA, yes, there are stuff we can do. There are some experimental genetic stuff, obviously we're not going to get into. It is still under heavy experimental work, but there are other things that could be determined through changes in diet, changes in exercise, protecting sleep, controlling stress, etc. So how is that determined? Is it accessible to everybody? The answer is yes, and it's cheaper than you think. So it is something that is done through saliva. Some companies do it through hair, and some do it through drops of blood. So it is something that could be done at home, but most likely you will need a physician to further interpret it to you and look into it and tell you this is what this means and this is what we could do about it. There's another model that came out called Grim Age. Grim Age is determined based off 175 changes. Grim Age is able to predict the state of 174 different diseases, providing biological age in a very accurate way. Another form is called Dundee Pace, and this is not an absolute number. It is not a number where your biological age is 66 or 65 or 25. It is actually the pace of aging. So this year, you're aging at a rate of 0.66 of a year, which means that you are actually in good shape. Now, what is very important is these numbers are changeable. You can change, you can maneuver, you can adjust these by adopting all the metrics that we've talked about in the past: sleep, cardiovascular protection, food, certain exercises, resistance training, defeating insulin resistance, battling inflammation. So it is not actually a gimmick. It is not a longevity hack gimmick of 2026. It is real. Very important studies back it. This, in my opinion, will be, within the next 10 years, one of the gold standards of primary care medicine. Nowadays, I do check it for people who are interested. It is not a very hard test to do, but it provides so much information besides just that biological age. It determines the state of many other diseases, deficiencies, lipid parameters, vitamin parameters, nutritional situations, etc. If somebody once comes and says, okay, what is the difference between this and actually checking the DNA sequence? There's a big difference. First of all, the DNA sequence, as we said, does not change. What changes is this gene going to be transcribed or not. And this is to a certain extent under our control. So that's why I do not offer genetic testing a lot, because nowadays there's not a whole lot you can do besides getting that information, because it could add a lot more anxiety than knowledge unless we're looking specifically for a certain condition or disease runs in the family, specific changes in health that really are pointing us toward a certain disease and we need confirmation. But epigene is a whole different story, because epigene is not predetermined and it is changeable. It is under your control. Talk to your physician about that. Talk to them about epigene, about biological age. It is not out of this world. It is easy to do and is accessible. And I encourage a lot of people to do it and obtain it, because it will make a lot of difference in your longevity journey. If you like this video and you'd like to hear more from us, hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll talk to you soon.